Hello everyone, welcome into my summer scouting series. Today we are going to be going through the top 10 quarterbacks and who I expect to be in consideration for being the top quarterbacks in the 2026 NFL draft. A lot of these guys have a lot to prove. There's a lot of guys who, have a lot of really good traits on this list, but maybe need to show a lot more. Summer scouting is about kind of seeing the potential with a lot of these guys. And so we're going to be going through 10 of my favorites here. Let me know some of your thoughts in the comments down below of who you really like for this upcoming draft. We'll just go ahead and dive right into it though, starting at number 10 with Fernando Mendoza, who I do think is somebody that has some fans out there. Mendoza was at California before transferring over to Indiana this offseason through the transfer portal. He's a redshirt junior, 6'5", 225 pounds, definitely has that ideal size. In 2024 at Cal, he played in 11 games, went 265 for 386, 68% completion percentage, 3,004 yards, 16 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. There's some things to like. Obviously, he has that ideal size at 6'5", 225 pounds. He's well built. He's thick. He can, he looks like your ideal prototypical quarterback for the NFL level. And he has a strong arm to go along with that. He can push the ball down the field. He definitely has solid velocity, throwing into tight windows. There's some good things to like with just his physical profile. He can also go through progressions pretty well. You'll see him go and hit that backside dig. He goes through his reads. He's not necessarily just locked on to his number one read all the time. And generally speaking, he has good accuracy as well. He'll place it away from defenders. He's pretty consistent. 68.7 completion percentage. That's not a perfect metric by any means, but, that shows that he was relatively accurate, generally speaking. He put the ball where he wanted to, allowed his wide receivers to get yards after the catch. There's a lot to like in that department. That being said, there are definitely some major concerns in Mendoza's game that, prevents him from being a top-tier quarterback in this class. And first and foremost, he does not deal with pressure well. He had a 25.6 pressure to sack ratio. That is really high. That means that he's not often avoiding defenders, extending the play, being able to create outside the structure of the offense. He is oftentimes just getting sacked. And that's because he doesn't have great mobility. He's not this super athletic guy. He's not so big and strong that he's impossible to bring down in the pocket. Usually when rushers get to him, he gets sacked. And that's not what you love to see. And because of that, that means that he speeds up a lot of his decision making and he can make some really terrible decisions. He had 17 turnover-worthy plays in 2024 per PFF and only 12 big-time throws. You definitely want to see more of those big-time throws. Those are kind of the throws where, he does something really special. And he had far more turnover-worthy plays. So even though he only had 6 interceptions, which is a pretty low number, that's certainly not terrible. He did put the ball in harm's way relatively often, and a lot of those came when he was pressured. So definitely some things he needs to clean up. Moving into the Big Ten, I do think that, he has an opportunity to show at Indiana, who I do think will be a pretty good team this year, that he can be a potential starting quarterback in the NFL. As of right now, I probably have a day 3 grade on him, somewhat of an early day 3 grade. Round 4 to 5 is really where I see him at this point. He's an interesting player, has some good size, some good talent to work with. He just has to get a little bit better at managing things when they break down. Next up at number 9, definitely a developmental type player. We have Dante Moore out of Oregon. Redshirt sophomore, 6'3", 210 pounds. Moore is an interesting story. He was a really highly recruited player coming out of high school, was a 5-star. He was the number 3 quarterback in that class by most of the databases. Went to UCLA where he played a decent bit as a true freshman, threw for 1,600 yards, 11 touchdowns, 9 picks, had 14 big-time throws, 12 turnover-worthy plays. He wasn't great by any means, but there were definitely some flashes of some really good things. He ends up transferring to Oregon as kind of the presumed backup. He was backing up Dillon Gabriel all of last season, only went out there, had 8 attempts on the season, went 7 for 8 for 49 yards, so basically did nothing last season. He was a true backup, learning behind Dillon Gabriel, learning this Oregon system. And I think that is going to really benefit him because he has a ton of traits. He has great arm talent. He's a really good dual threat ability as well, has athleticism. He can run with the football and design touches. He can run off script, extend plays. He has a variety of arm angles as well, which just again allows him to throw from different platforms, throw around defenders, put the ball in different places that other guys just can't do it. And then he's also really willing to rip it into tight windows, trust his wide receivers, trust his arm, and he has a lot of confidence in himself as well. There's definitely some things to like in his game. And then I do think he is a little bit on the smaller side. He's listed at 6'3", 210. I think that's probably a little bigger than he is, but even if that is his full size, he just plays a little bit smaller. He's not the biggest, most built guy on the planet. He essentially didn't play in 2024, as we mentioned before. He really had no tape last year, so, he played as a true freshman. If he ends up going into the draft in 2026, he'll really only be a 1.5 year full-time starter at Oregon for that full year. And then he needs to develop better processing and take care of the football better. He puts the ball in harm's way too often, doesn't make great decisions from time to time. You see that at UCLA. He needs to get better getting off his first read, being able to process the defense, hit those backside digs, be able to go through full field progressions. But I think Oregon's going to give him the opportunity to do that this upcoming season. And because of all of the physical traits he has, I'm really, really excited to see what he can do. I think he's looked pretty good in, the spring game and practices. I think the talent absolutely kind of oozed through some of the mess that was UCLA in his true freshman season. So I like Dante Moore. I think that there's a very good chance he shoots way up this board, or he's just not in the draft at all next season because he really wasn't all that good. So I think, Moore has a wide spectrum of outcomes, but I really do like him. Right now, I have a 3 to 4 round grade on him. I think, like I said, most likely he's either going to shoot up the board or drop way down. This is just kind of that middle ground where I have him at the moment since we haven't seen him play a lot. At number 8, we have John Mateer, played at Washington State in 2024, transferred to Oklahoma this offseason. Really interesting redshirt junior, 6'1", 224 pounds. And there is a lot to like in John Mateer's game. I'm excited to see him transferring into the SEC where he's going to have an opportunity to really show the kind of player he is. Because Washington State, let's be real, just wasn't playing the most elite competition. I think this is going to be a real big chance and an opportunity for him to show what he can do. He has good arm talent. Despite not being a big guy at 6'1", 224, typically that means you don't have all of that, arms talent. Mateer has it. He really does. And he's a very, very dynamic runner and athlete. He had over 1,000 rushing yards, 15 rushing touchdowns to go along with his 3,100 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, had 7 interceptions. There's a lot to like in Mateer's, pure athleticism profile, his physical traits as well. His arm talent is really good. He's really good off script. When plays break down, yes, he tries to do too much at times, but he is a playmaker. He is an absolute gunslinger. He plays with a ton of confidence. He is just one of those pure gamer type of players that you just run around with on Madden and, spam the ball deep. That's pretty much Mateer every single play. And that is a very exciting style to watch. I think that at times inside of the structure of the offense, he does have inconsistent mechanics. He throws off his back foot all the time. That causes him to have some poor accuracy from time to time as well. He's definitely over aggressive as well. He'll put the ball into harm's way. Like I said, he can run around and make ridiculous plays, but sometimes he runs right into a sack or throws it right to the defense. You can't have that. He also just doesn't have the best size. At 6'1", 224 pounds, he's thick, but he's definitely a shorter quarterback. He's may struggle to see the middle of the field a little bit more, though I do think, generally speaking, he could put the ball pretty much anywhere on the field pretty consistently at Washington State. My early comp for him is something like a Baker Mayfield, kind of that playmaker. He'll run around, make plays. He's shorter, but he's well built. He has a good arm. He plays with a lot of confidence. A young Baker Mayfield, I definitely think, is a decent comp for John Mateer, especially now since he's going to Oklahoma. I think, that resemblance will kind of certainly take off a little bit in this upcoming season. For now, I have a round 3 to 4 grade on him. I think that, there are definitely some inconsistencies to his game, but he brings a lot of confidence, swagger, off-script athleticism, and arm talent as well that are very, very exciting, and we'll see if it can translate in the SEC. Next up at number 7, we have Nico Iamaleava. He was at Tennessee, transferred to UCLA. A lot of transfer quarterbacks kind of early in the rankings here. He's a junior, 6'6", 215 pounds. And Iamaleava was a very highly recruited guy, ended up going to UCLA because of kind of NIL disputes with Tennessee. It's going to be very interesting to see how his game translates there, where maybe there's a little bit less talent and the offense is a little bit less QB friendly. In 2024, threw for 2,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And there's some interesting things. Like I said, he's very talented physically. He has a great arm. He is a fantastic athlete and a dynamic runner. Had 475 rushing yards in 2024. He is just, a scrambler. He can extend plays. He brings that kind of mobile option to your offense. He's good off script, being able to create when things break down. And he's still very young. He's just 20 years old. There's a lot of untapped talent and untapped potential. Moving to UCLA, yes, it's maybe a less QB-friendly offense, but I do think Tennessee does kind of not translate to the pros very well. It's very spread out. They create a lot of free releases for their wide receivers, get you into a lot of space, and allow the quarterback to just kind of blindly throw it to their first read. So I think that UCLA will give him an opportunity to really show his processing ability, his ability to anticipate, make tough throws into tight windows. Those are not really things that he's proven that he can't do, but it's just something he needs to prove he can do at UCLA as well. Some of the cons to his game, he's tall, but he's very thin. 215 pounds isn't bad, but when you're 6'6", he just looks really, really thin, and I think he does need to bulk up. He is very first read and run oriented right now as well. Tennessee's offense very much kind of funnels all of their targets into this first read, and Iamaleava, because of that, really just never got to his second read pretty consistently. It was first read, or if that broke down, the backside is probably not even really running a real concept, and so he takes off, and he's athletic, and he can make guys miss, so that sometimes worked for Tennessee, but I think that is not something that is very translatable to the pros. His accuracy is inconsistent at times. He sails the ball over wide receivers' heads all the freaking time, especially over the middle of the field. That's something he just simply has to clean up. That's going to create a lot of interceptions. When you lead a guy high, that puts them in a really bad position over the middle of the field where they're going to either get crushed or they're going to tip the ball up and it's going to get picked off. He just needs to be much better over the middle in particular, but accuracy at all three levels of the field aren't great. And then he is very late to anticipate throws, be able to see things before they come open. And again, this is another part of that Tennessee offense where you're basically staring down your first read and it's usually a high-low concept or, you're just throwing it to your open man. And so Iamaleava just didn't really have to anticipate. You see it, you throw it. That's pretty much how Tennessee's offense operated. And so that's why I do think it can be beneficial for him to get away from that system. But UCLA also has a lot less talent, and he's going to have to prove himself that he can do all of these things that he hasn't proven he can do at the college level. The talent level is absolutely there. He's very young, he's very athletic, he's very talented. He just needs to prove that he can put all of those things together in a new situation. As of right now, I have a round 2 to 3 grade on him, but definitely somebody that can swing very dramatically in either direction. Moving next to Sam Levit out of Arizona State. Senior, 6'2", 200 pounds. I really liked watching Sam Levit's tape. He was very fun to watch. Has really good arm talent. Much like John Mateer, he's not the biggest guy, 6'2", 200 pounds. He's light, he's not super tall, but he has a good arm despite that. He's very much a dual threat athlete as well. Had over 500 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground in 2024. And, you can see he's very productive through the air as well. 2,800 yards, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. There's a lot to like in kind of his just physical profile. That's a very common theme on this list. He's good off script. When things break down, he's definitely kind of that playmaker. Just like we talked about with John Mateer, he'll run around, go off script, make plays, and he has good mechanics as well. You'll see him, he'll drop back, he is very smooth in his drop, has a good quick snappy release. I really like a lot of that kind of part of his profile as well. Some of the cons, he doesn't have the great size. Sometimes, he's not able to attack the middle of the field as consistently as you would want. He is very chaotic, and, I think he teeters that line a little bit, much like John Mateer, of when he's going off script, he can just make plays that very few other quarterbacks at the college level can make, but he also is oftentimes just running around blindly, ball out, just looking to chuck it downfield or take off with it. He's just very chaotic at times. He needs to rein a little bit of that in. You want to see him go through progressions more. He's a little bit too first read and run reliant, kind of like Nico Iamaleava, who we just talked about. And then the biggest concern with Sam Levit, I would say, is his accuracy. 61.7% completion percentage isn't great at the college level. You want to see that definitely rise up, especially since he has some good wide receivers at Arizona State there. You want to see him just place the ball a little bit more consistently, where his wide receivers can get yards after catch, where they're able to, run, catch the ball in stride, not have to adjust too dramatically to it. Think, if he can rein that in a little bit, as well as his decision making, there's a lot to like. despite being a little chaotic, he only had 6 interceptions, really didn't put the ball in harm's way too often. His turnover-worthy play percentage was one of the lowest in college football. So, you're pretty excited to see a lot of that, especially if he can kind of get a little bit more accurate, play within the structure of the offense, go through progressions a little bit more frequently. I think Sam Levit could potentially be a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. Right now, I have around 2 to 3 grade on him. Somewhere on day 2, I like the upside of what Levit can provide. Moving to number 5, I have Cade Klubnick, the Clemson senior, 6'2", 210 pounds. Klubnick's somebody that I feel pretty good about what he is, and I think there's a very good likelihood he ends up as QB3 or something like that in this class, because I think he is going to be really consistent. He's going to be really productive. Had great seasons statistically, 3,600 yards, 36 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 63% completion percentage. And when you watch his game, when you watched him as a freshman, he just looked overwhelmed. He looked lost. He wasn't accurate. He has grown a ton as a quarterback, and you got to give him major credit for that. He had 28 big-time throws, which was a fantastic number, to 13 turnover-worthy plays. He's gotten that number down every single year, as well as rising his big-time throws for the most part as well. He's just very consistent in what he does. He's very accurate. He's a strong decision maker. He really doesn't put the ball in harm's way too often. He's a good athlete. He can take off and run and beat you with his legs if you give him an opportunity to do so. It's maybe not the hallmark of his game, but he absolutely can take advantage of it. He's shown huge development, has gotten better consistently year after year after year in college. He had great numbers in 2024, was incredibly productive. There's just some physical limitations to Klubnick's profile. He's a bit on the smaller side. He has a good, not great arm. Sometimes he can get stuck on progressions. He, is a little bit slow to get to those second and third reads, but absolutely, I think he's shown development in that area as well. Klubnick's just somebody I feel very confident in can be an NFL quarterback. I think he is somebody that's going to get drafted relatively high on day 1 or 2. Right now, I have around 2 grade on him. I think the upside is a little bit limited on him, but he has shown a lot of progress. I think, that can't be discounted. If he continues to develop, take that next step on a Clemson team that I expect to be really good this upcoming season, then I could absolutely see Klubnick being a first-round quarterback, being somebody that, teams consider as a potential franchise guy. There's a lot to like in his profile. I just think that maybe his upside is a little bit more limited with summer scouting. I like to look at what these guys really could be if things work out. Obviously, you have to take into account some of their downsides and detractors as well. But for Klubnick, I feel good about his profile. I think he'll be a good quality starting quarterback at the NFL level. Then at number 4, somebody I feel completely different about is LaNorris Sellers. South Carolina, redshirt sophomore. He's 6'3", 240 pounds. This dude is just crazy physically gifted. In 12 games in 2024, had a 65% completion percentage, 2,300 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. He had 16 big-time throws and 19 turnover-worthy plays, so definitely puts the ball in harm's way. He did have over 850 yards on the ground and 7 touchdowns as well, so there's definitely a lot to like in that regard. The physical traits are beyond there. His great size is evident. He's 6'3", 240 pounds. He's built like an absolute tank. He has a lead arm talent. He can hit every throw on the field. He just has an absolute cannon. His running is special. You turn on the Clemson tape in particular, dude's just bouncing off him like crazy. A comp that comes with very high praise, but I think you can see some of the similarities in their profile is like a Cam Newton when you look at LaNorris Sellers. He's that big bruising runner where guys just cannot tackle him. He has crazy arm talent. He's really special as a runner. He's incredibly tough to bring down inside the pocket. He'll break out a sack, spin away, and drop a ball 50 yards downfield or go take off and break 3 tackles. And not to mention with LaNorris Sellers as well, he's very young. He just turned 20 years old. He is going to be a very young prospect, somebody that will have SEC experience. There's a lot he has to improve on, though, when it comes to being a pure quarterback, because the physical traits are beyond there. His anticipation and timing is just not there really at all. He waits for guys to come open. He is not very good at throwing it into tight windows because he's often late, recognizing guys coming open, where they're going to be. He drops his eyes versus the rush as well. When that pocket starts to break down, you can see him, kind of start to scan the defensive line, look to run pretty much immediately. His processing very much, kind of in the same light of all of these things. He's not going through multiple progressions, hitting the backside read super consistently. To me, he is a very raw player. And then his accuracy suffers from some of that as well because, it feels like he's trying to make up for some of the lack of progression and anticipation by ripping the ball in there. It's not always the most accurate. He's, behind wide receivers too often. Then not to mention his ball security was really, really bad. For as good of a runner as he is, he had 11 fumbles in 2024. So he absolutely has to clean that up. That is just putting the ball in harm's way far too often. So Sellers is a really interesting player. He is probably either going to be a top 10 pick or not in this draft because he was not very good this year. I mentioned Cam Newton. I think Anthony Richardson is also not a terrible comp as well. He's big, he's physical, a dynamic runner, but he doesn't really read the field super well. So those are two very different ends of the spectrum for Sellers, but I think we're going to see how he kind of develops and which side of that spectrum he's on in this 2025 season and where he might end up going for this draft. Next up at number 3, we have Drew Allar out of Penn State. Senior, 6'5", 235 pounds. I think he probably would have been a first-round pick in this draft if he ended up declaring last year. He decided to come back to Penn State for his senior season, compete for a national championship. Looking at his 2024 stats, 16 games, 66.5 completion percentage, 3,300 yards, 24 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And another guy with just great traits. He has great size, really good arm talent. Those things are evident when you look at just his frame, his build. He reminds me a little bit of like a Ben Roethlisberger type where he's really tough to bring down, has good pocket management, good arm talent, goes through his progressions really well. There's a lot to like in kind of his pocket passer mentality. He's also a pretty good athlete, had over 400 rushing yards as well. There's definitely physical traits that he's kind of oozing with. His decision-making is still a little bit shaky from time to time. Penn State 2 years ago in 2023 really just did not give him an opportunity to throw the ball, to, push the ball downfield, to be aggressive. Last year in 2024, it was definitely more so of that, but even still, they really didn't seem to allow him to push the ball super often. He had 10 turnover-worthy plays, which isn't terrible, especially compared to 21 big-time throws. But I do think at times he's putting the ball in harm's way. When he does get opportunities to push it downfield, he doesn't always make the best decisions. His accuracy at times is a little bit erratic as well. He will miss behind guys high. He's just not always putting it precisely where he needs to. It's not usually terrible, but oftentimes the wide receiver has to stop to kind of make the catch or turn around and stop their momentum. I think he can just continue to be a lot more precise in that regard. And then the biggest thing with Drew Allar is he just kind of needs to put things together, especially against the biggest and best competition that he faced. You look at his big games last year. Ohio State's no touchdowns, 1 interception. You had Oregon, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Notre Dame, no touchdowns, 1 interception. He just didn't look super dynamic and dominant against some of the best competition he went up against. And I think that's just something that really he needs to show. Showing up in big moments, being able to carry his team and lead his team to victory, that's what makes a guy a franchise quarterback. And I think Allar definitely still has that to prove, but the physical traits are there. There's a lot to like in his profile, and right now I have a late first, early second round grade on him. Moving up at number 2, we have Garrett Nusmeier out of LSU, redshirt senior, 6'2", 200 pounds. And Nusmeier is another guy who I think would have been a first-round pick had he decided to go into the draft in 2025, decided to return to school, compete for a national championship, had over 4,000 yards, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and from a pure just understanding the game perspective, Nusmeier is the best in that kind of area in this class. His good arm talents, he's a gunslinger, he's not afraid to push the ball down the field. His accuracy, his football IQ, his ability to anticipate and see guys coming open, before they're actually open. He is really, really good at that. His ability to attack the middle of the field and kind of know what's coming and what the defense is trying to do to him. I think he's really good when it comes to his mind and his ability to read out defenses, which makes sense because his dad is the offensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints in the NFL. So, it comes from probably being around the game a lot. You'll see him, call out protections at the line of scrimmage, just advanced things that you don't see a lot of college quarterbacks doing. Nussmeier has taken charge. Last year was his first year starting, so even though he is a little bit of an older prospect, he's still learning and developing and pretty new to being the guy in that LSU quarterback room. And there's a lot there. His pocket management is generally really good. There are moments where he'll just run himself into sacks, but I think, his ability to step up in the pocket, manipulate the defense in front of him, extend the play, allow his guys to get further downfield, and this dude is not afraid to take a shot downfield. He is a gunslinger of all gunslingers. He just has ultimate confidence in his arm and in his ability to push the ball downfield and hit tight window throws, and a lot of times he does it, and he looks elite. Then there's other times where he just puts the ball into triple coverage, and you're like, what are you even looking at there? So he definitely needs to kind of find that balance a little bit more. Some of his decision making is not great, but that's why I have Gunslinger listed as a pro and a con for him. He can do it in a really, really impressive manner, and other times it does not work out for him at all. His mobility is solid, but he's not really much of a runner. He's going to win from the pocket. So that's really where he is most dangerous. And then he doesn't have ideal size. He's 6'2", 200. He's definitely not the prototypical giant build quarterback, but Nussmeier attacks the middle of the field probably the best of any quarterback in this class. So you really don't have any major concerns about it. I think, to me, he is the most pro-ready quarterback in this class. I think that he is a guy that could step into an NFL locker room right now and have some NFL success. He was my QB1 last year in the draft before he ended up going back to school. So I thought very highly of him then. I still think pretty highly of him as well. Right now I have a mid to late first round grade on him. I think there's a very, very good chance he's a top 10 pick. And if he continues to develop, I really do see him as worth that selection. So I do like Garrett Nusmeier a lot. But that brings us to number one. That does bring us to number one, who I have as Arch Manning out of Texas, redshirt sophomore, 6'4", 216 pounds. And there's a lot in this conversation with Arch Manning. Obviously, he wasn't the full-time starter last year. He did play in 10 games, went 61 for 90, 939 yards, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Really played significant snaps in only about 2.5 games, so it's not a big-time profile that you're really working with. And yes, it was against Louisiana Monroe and Mississippi State, who is the absolute bottom feeders of the SEC. But, man, there was a lot to like in Arch Manning's game. And, he is going to have the Manning name expectations. And people are going to doubt him and think that he's just this highly rated because has Manning as his last name. That's fair. I do think that sometimes that is the case where people get hyped up because of their name, but I don't think that that's really the case here. He does have a lack of game experience, and he, I think, can continue to develop some accuracy, some timing and anticipation, things like that I think he can develop, but he's going to have the opportunity to do so this upcoming season at Texas. And the big conversation with Arch Manning is he's kind of already hinted at the possibility that he might stay after this season and stay for his senior year, which I don't think would be a bad thing by any means. But I do think that means that, Manning is a little bit of a nuanced conversation in this class. But based on what we've seen so far from Arch Manning at Texas, he has ideal size, 6'4", 216 pounds. He's big, he's athletic, he has a great arm as well. But with Arch, unlike his uncles, Eli and Peyton, this dude can move. You look at his rushing profile, he absolutely has athleticism, can take off, make dangerous plays. Against UTSA, he had a huge touchdown run where he was just a read option and he took it to the house because he has the athleticism to do that. But really where he wins is as a pocket passer, and you can see that because he goes through progressions. Very, very early on in his career, he has shown that he can go through progressions. He can manage a pocket really well. He'll shrug off, potential sacks and reset his platform and be able to extend plays. He has awesome mechanics. You can tell he's been around football. He's very poised in that pocket. He'll take a shot and deliver a perfect ball downfield. There's just so much to like in Arch Manning's profile. I do not think that it's just because the Manning name on his back that people think really highly of him. Right now, I have an early first-round grade. I think he has the potential to be the number one overall pick if he declares for this draft and if he plays as well as many of us think he can. Manning is an exciting prospect and somebody I do think could potentially, live up to the Manning hype, even despite all that comes with that. There are tons of other quarterbacks in this class. Usually we have a guy that comes out of nowhere that, shoots up draft boards and is really, really fun. But let me know some of your thoughts on who the best quarterbacks in this upcoming college football season are going to be, maybe potentially for the 2026 NFL draft as well. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this kind of content, please hit that like button, just a quick, free, and easy way to support the channel. Hit the subscribe button as well. I would truly, truly appreciate it. If you want to see more summer scouting, let me know what position you want to see next in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I will catch you in the next one.